the best thing to do as a business is to set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. So you want to look at your information about your numbers and set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. So here in this chart here, there's only marginal revenue. But if we include marginal cost in this chart, you would want to set your production. You want to create enough quantity where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So whichever level of production, which level of quantity you set, you want to make sure marginal revenue and marginal cost are equal. So you just track this chart and put in the marginal cost. So to shut down, so in the short run, a company can still operate when they're making a loss. So as long as the company is making enough money in revenue to cover their variable costs, they'll stay running in the short term. So as long as they can pay their employees in the short term, they'll stay open. Even if the other costs are making them have a loss, they'll still stay open. But if they're not covering the variable costs in the short run, they'll shut down. Because if they're not covering the cost of workers, they'll just shut down. Because it's going to be better for their finances if they just shut down. But in the long run, this is not the case. In the long run, if they're making less revenue than their total cost, they will shut down. So it's every cost. Fixed costs are considered in the long run, not the short run. So in the short run, your fixed cost may be very high compared to your revenue, but you can still operate when you're still covering variable costs with your revenue. Sunk costs are fixed costs. So factories, stores, anything that is not variable, anything that doesn't change. So they're usually long-term costs. So it takes a long time. You have to wait until the long term in order to get rid of them. So you can't shut down and get rid of your sunk costs in the short term. That's why they're not considered that much in the short term. They're more focused on long term. So in the long run, if the revenue is not meeting the total costs, if the revenue is lower than the total costs, the company will shut down. So you want to, in the long run, you want to be making more revenue than your total costs to keep running. So that's very important in the long run, because in the long run, the fixed costs are also considered along with the variable costs. So learning activities. So I recommend doing the textbook questions, doing the MindTap activities, and completing assignment 2. So in this module, the best thing to do for this module is to practice the calculations of total revenue minus average variable costs for this. So it's best to do calculations of total revenue minus total variable costs in the short run, and in the long run, do calculations of total revenue minus all total costs to determine if you should be operating, and also determining how to maximize profits by looking at the charts and determining when marginal revenue equals marginal costs. So that's very important. And then perfect competition is very good for consumers. So it's the best situation for consumers, but not the best situation for producers. Yeah. So I recommend doing assignment 2 as soon as possible. So it's focused on analyzing how competitive markets allocate resources. So you want to do this. This will be good practice, and it will help you with understanding how competitive markets are functioning.